remember the events from 9/11, seeing that we were only 1 year old. But we have resources and different stories that are told by people who witnessed this tragedy.
Today we have these people sharing their stories. Each story has a personal and meaningful connection to the loss of thousands of innocent victims.
We will hear from a stay-at-home mom, a traveling dad, and a working grandmother whose lives were affected by this in different ways.
Rosalie Scazzari. I have a few questions for you regarding 9/11. How did you first hear about 9/11 and where were you?
I first heard about 9/11 when I was sitting in my living room in the morning. I was watching my two girls, Isabella and Julia. Julia was just born, and she was sleeping in her car seat because she didn't like to sleep at night. And I was watching Good Morning America, and that is when I saw the first plane hit the building.
What did you first think it was? Terrorists or just an accident?
I didn't really know what to think because I thought, how can it be an accident? Pilots know how to fly planes. But I didn't think it was a terrorist attack either, so I didn't really know what to think.
What was your most vivid memory from the day?
The most vivid memory was to watch all the people going towards the buildings or towards those that needed their help.
As a side question, we noticed that when we were discussing this, we were talking about groups that went towards the flames as opposed to running away, like the survivors who had boats or firemen or policemen. Why do you think that was like that?
Because I think that Americans have an incredible gift of loving each other and wanting to help people, and I truly believe that that is why they went towards the carnage and the flames.
Did you ever think anything like this would happen in the U.S.?
I did not.
Why?
Because I thought this is such a great country, it's a powerful country. I don't think that terrorists would ever be able to penetrate through our security and through our system, and I really didn't believe that that could happen.
Do you feel safe flying on American Airlines today?
Yes, I do.
Before you, like a couple years after 9/11, did you still feel safe, or was your safety or feeling of safety wavering?
It did waver because it was so difficult to watch the bad things that had happened. So I did waver, and was a little bit nervous, but that did go away as the years went on.
Who do you most blame for the death of the innocent?
I most blame those that believe this is what God wants.
Such as the Al-Qaeda group, or Bin Laden, or...
Such as the Al-Qaeda group, such as those extreme groups that believe that God wants death and war and not life.
Thank you. Looking back while traveling to New York City, do you remember it as a city of hope and remembrance, or a city of fear and tragedy?
Definitely hope and remembrance.
Any particular reason why?
Because it's a city that's full of life. It's a city that has so much to offer, and even after the tragedy, people still lived. They still went out and they still enjoyed the beautiful days in New York City, and it just didn't deter anybody from living.
Did September 11th affect your faith or outlook on life?
No, because my faith is very strong, and I knew that God would never do something like this to us, that it is definitely because of people and their choices, so definitely not. And one of the most important memories that I have regarding my faith is that we baptized Julia a week after, and I'll never forget that the priest talked about how strong our faith was in our family, that we could still bring our daughter into the faith after such a tragic event.
Do you want new generations to be educated on the tragedies of this day or live afraid?
They should be educated because I think that knowledge is power, and I think that it would help people to know what not to do, and maybe it would help them to know what to look for when they're on a train or when they're on a plane, to maybe help so that they can not ever be in that situation again.
As a follow-up question to your answer of learning from our mistakes in a sense, do you feel that people have learned from these mistakes, or something more recent, such as the Boston bombing in 2013? Do you think that something like that could have been prevented, or do you think that we're not really learning from our mistakes?
Well, I think that we want to learn from our mistakes, but I think that there's always so much new technology or something new, something bigger, better, different, that we don't really know enough about where they're going, where the Al-Qaeda groups or these extremist groups are going to, hurt other people. So I do think that it's hard for our security to learn.
So you don't think we could prevent these events or tragedies to happen?
I think we could. I think that's what we are seeing. I think people are becoming braver. When, this train in France, those soldiers kind of saw the signs and they acted. So I do think that we're starting to get there, that it can be prevented or can be stopped before we get to serious tragedy.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your insight on today and helping me look further into what your life was like on 9/11/2001.
It's my father, Vito Politano, and he will be answering some questions on his experience on 9/11. How did you first hear about 9/11 and where were you?
Sure. On 9/11, I actually had a flight out of Boston at 8:10 that morning. It was an Air Canada flight, and we were flying into Toronto. And found out about the tragedy when we landed and going through customs. The Canadian customs officer informed us of the first plane at that time, which had flown into the tower.
What did you first think it was, a terrorist attack or just an accident?
Just an accident. We had no reason to suspect a terrorist type act. And at that time, the news reports weren't totally aware of what had really happened. So I think everybody's feeling and thoughts were that it was some sort of accident.
What is your vivid memory of the day?
It was concerning. It was a scary feeling. Very vulnerable. I think we all felt, and wanted to come home. We just wanted to get back to our homes.
Did you ever think anything like this would happen in the U.S.?
Never imagined anything like this happening to the U.S. Just always felt that we were a safe country, being safe in our own homes, in our country, and just never imagined anything like this would ever happen.
Did you fly right after this tragedy occurred?
I did. Sometime in October of that year, I flew to, I think it was Germany. I had a flight for a business trip, so I did fly not too long afterwards.
Do you feel safe flying on American Airlines today?
I do. I feel that there is good and enough security measures in place to do a good job of ensuring our safety.
Who do you blame most for the death of the innocent?
I blame the terrorists. I blame people that caused the tragedy. I just felt that it was a cowardly move. There's no reason for it. That's who I blame.
Looking back while traveling to New York, do you remember it as a city of hope and remembrance, or as of fear and tragedy?
Hope and remembrance. Can never forget the view of the towers. You always remember what happened that day, and hope is what this country was built on. You know, a lot of the cities, like New York, it was hope for the immigrants coming to a new country.
Did September 11th affect your faith or outlook on life?
It did. It affected my outlook, made me really appreciate what we have in this country, made me appreciate the firefighters and police officers that sacrifice their lives, and makes me appreciate the men and women in our armed services.
Do you want new generations to be educated on the tragedies this day brought, or live afraid?
I wish that they, do remember this day, 9/11. I think it's an important part of our history now. It was a big tragedy. It was a big loss to this country, and it's part of our history now.
You know, that the shock that you got when you heard about it, what was happening.
Yeah.
I think it was 8:45 when we first heard it on the news. That's what I remember. I think it was 8:45 in the morning, and I remember being here in the house, and I had the radio on, and when you hear it, you can't believe what you're hearing.
What did you first think it was? Did you think it was a terrorist attack, or did you think it was an accident?
I thought at first that maybe that it was a plane that had, that was an accident. But then, of course, as the news started to unfold, when it happened in Philadelphia, and we knew then that nearly knew then that it was a terrorist attack. Yeah. That's what I think anyway, because at first, when you heard it first, you figured maybe a plane went, you know what I mean? Would you think, is that all right, huh?
Oh, that's perfect, Granny. Thank you. So what was the most vivid memory of that day? Do you remember, anything?
Well, I remember that Mary, she was down at Logan Airport, Mary, my daughter, because she was going to, I don't know exactly what airport she was going to, and that, we were, until we got in touch with her, that, we were very worried. Yeah. I think she was going to I can't think of the exact state that she was going to, but we were very worried until we heard from her.
Yeah.
Would that be all right, do you think?
That's perfect, Granny. Thank you. Did you ever think anything like this could ever happen in the United States?
No, never did. Never did. You never think that something like that could happen? No, you would never think of anything like that happening in this country, but it did.
Do you feel safe flying on American Airlines today, or any other air traveling?
Since 9/11, 14 years ago, they have, the security and everything is so much better on planes now than it was then.
So you do feel safer?
Yes, definitely.
Who do you most blame for the deaths of the innocent people who lost their lives?
Say the name them for me. What was their name?
The Al-Qaeda?
Yeah.
Looking back, traveling to New York City, do you feel that New York is now a place of hope and remembrance, or a city of fear?
I don't think it's a city of fear. I think it's, it's a better, I don't think people that go there today are as frightened as they were then. I don't think so, Molly. People going to New York today, I don't think so. That's what I feel anyway. What would you think?
Yeah, I think it's a lot safer too. Yeah.
I do too. I think that's what I would say, a lot safer.
Did September 11th affect your faith or outlook on life in any way? Did September 11th affect your faith or outlook on life in any way?
Well, I think it was a great example of how people rallied together, and that there was a lot of, good maybe came out of it. Because, the wonderful what all those firemen, how they, what they did, and all of that type of stuff. I think in some ways it brought people nearly closer together. Yeah, maybe that's not the right answer. I don't know, hon.
No, Granny, that's perfect. Thank you so much. So this is the last question. Do you want future generations to be educated on the tragedies of this day, or live in fear?
No, to be educated. Not to be living in fear, but that the future generations